Hi, you're not lazy, it's a burnout. What's the difference? Many people mix these two up, and we mistakenly judge ourselves as being lazy, whereas instead we're experiencing last stages of a burnout. I will explain the important difference between the two and give you some red flags of burnout that you should be noticing in order for you to avoid further severe and damaging health effects. I specialize in working with chronic stress that has become toxic for you because it's been there for a long time, sometimes since your childhood, and it's showing up in symptoms of exhaustion, loss of motivation, and a number of physical symptoms. This is the stress that doesn't go away, and it's now poisoning your body with anxiety, fear, exhaustion, and physical pain. A lot of clients that I work with call themselves lazy. It's very common to hear them referring to themselves as lazy. They lack effort, motivation to do something, and their family often agrees that they are lazy. I recently worked with a 17-year-old girl on the issue of health anxiety and associated panic attacks. While talking to her, she routinely calls herself lazy. Her mom agrees. She says, I scroll through social media, I waste a lot of time watching Netflix, I just zone out instead of doing my homework or doing something useful. So the more I talked to her and the more we looked into her symptoms, it becomes obvious that she is one of the hardest working 17-year-olds. So on top of doing her final year of school, being in an accelerated math class, she's dealing with internal emotional issue. That keeps you really busy. The internal overwhelming symptoms of health anxiety is keeping her attention inside and requires a lot of her energy. So attention is focused on experiencing these symptoms, feeling a lot of fear about the symptoms, and her energy really goes into managing and coping to live with all these symptoms, the continuous overwhelm and the associated problems. Now, on top of that internal busyness that she's having, she also has other responsibilities, being a school student, a daughter, a friend, and a girlfriend. So you can see how she is not lazy. So I tell her straight away, you're not lazy. You actually have been working overtime and working too hard. Most probably you are burned out. And now, even if you have not been dealing with big emotional issues like this client, sometimes you might judge yourself mistakenly lazy just by default. So let me tell you signs and some difference between being lazy and being burnt out, and why it is so important to look out for those signs of burnout. Burnout happens when you invested or overinvested too much of yourself into something, into an activity or a person. You exhausted your resources, mental, physical, emotional, and sometimes even spiritual. It means you put out so much effort and burnt out because of it. Depleted yourself so much, you find it very difficult to function. Like in the case with the client that I mentioned, she has school special class and she's putting so much internal effort to maintain health anxiety and to live with it. So it's not surprising that a lot of people mix up the two, because their common manifestation is effort. Whereas for when you are lazy, it's the lack of effort. It's burned out when you put a lot of effort. So basically, burnout is an outcome of effort, whereas lazy is a lack of effort. But the common things between them is lack of interest, motivation. So a lot of people catch themselves burnt out quite late. At the time when they actually have depleted themselves and drained themselves beyond limits. It's not uncommon not to catch those symptoms. We only see them afterwards, and we have to deal with more severe and larger consequences of being depleted. The big reason for this, why people suffer from burnout, is because we lack self-awareness to read those personal tell signs of a looming burnout. And this is so important to know yourself and to catch yourself. And a lot of times we ignore self-care. Remember, burnout is a gradual thing. It takes time to build up. But once it has built up, it feels like it hits you like an avalanche, as if it was coming from nowhere, which is not the case. Probably you have been overlooking signs of approaching burnout and judging yourself lazy on top of it. Now you're dealing with consequences of it. You feel disconnected, not wanting to socialize, you're no longer interested and passionate about something or an activity that you used to be passionate about. A lazy person would not have those passions and interests in the first place. Now, you can become irritable and impatient. A lazy person normally comes across as more relaxed, chilled, laid back, with far less intense emotions. For me personally, I know I'm approaching burnout when I stop caring for myself. And this is true for a lot of full-time working parents. We just can't be bothered to go to a hair salon, get a massage, do our regular yoga exercises, go for a walk. Sometimes even taking a shower requires a great effort. It's hard to take care of yourself because even little tasks drain your energy. This is a sign of approaching burnout. Watch out for signs of burnout. It's very important. As I mentioned, it's gradual, and by the time you reach final stages of it, you are so depleted. The fatigue permeates you on so many levels, and exhaustion gets a strong hold of you. Now, ask yourself questions to bring awareness into how you experience tiredness and fatigue. Remember, it starts slow and then it becomes chronic, it intensifies, and once it's very big, it just hits you. Ask those questions. When is it too much? What is too tiring? What symptoms show up physically, emotionally, mentally when I get moderately tired? What happens when I'm really tired? What does exhaustion look like for me? Do I catch myself zoning out more, doing revenge scrolling? Do you know those things when kids go to sleep and you go on social media and you start scrolling because you're so wired up, you're so exhausted, you can't put down the cell phone and just go to sleep? This is a lot of drained parents and exhausted parents like to do that. Then analyze what makes you go into that high level of exhaustion when you also start feeling hopeless and helpless, like there is no end in sight to this feeling of exhaustion. This is a huge red flag. Please do not ignore it. Be honest with yourself. Look out for the level of tiredness and how it gradually grows. And I'm here to support you if you experience chronic stress, burnout, and if you need support, please reach out to organize a free clarity call. We can discuss your problem and how I can help. You can also send me a message and check out my website.